How do you do? We're about to unfold the story of Frankenstein. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. Well, we've warned you.
Consider yourself warned. Welcome back to the Frankenstein Minute, the podcast where we dissect the Universal Frankenstein films minute by minute. I'm Bill Evenson.
And I'm Tom Lang, and we are at minute 57 of 1931's Frankenstein. We continue, it's a great tracking shot of Ludwig, Michael Mark, carrying the dead body of little Maria, who the monster inadvertently drowned. And we discussed last week some of the more horrific implications that were created by cutting the footage of the monster actually throwing her in the lake.
Yep, and that was that's what I made note of while we were just watching the minute before we record. And given what you had said last week about the implications of the stocking being down, it made me think when I looked at her. I guess when I look at that corpse that he's carrying, I think she's covered in mud.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to look at her because it had made me think about what she looks like if you don't know necessarily what happened. It's like she could equally be covered in blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess you got to think that implication was there, even though there's going to be some dialogue in the next minute that kind of clears that up for you.
Yeah.
But, again, we also don't hear everything that's, I've always said. I don't know.
Well,
either way, if she is just covered in mud or blood, either way.
It looks horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah. It's tragic for all involved, not just Ludwig. And in the script, it's the mother that is with her and finds her and all that. In the film, I don't know why the change was made. I'm assuming so that he could take part in the essentially the lynch mob that is formed later on.
Yeah, we'll have more to say about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I agree. I think that's the reason.
Yeah,
It makes it a little clearer.
He's got a personal reason to be part of this, as does Henry and the Burgermeister. But anyway, this is a great tracking shot. Goes through most of the European village set there, and I've always been really impressed or moved by as they progress through. The celebration dies as they pass each little group and cluster of people.
I completely agree,
The hysterical laughing and shouting and singing music slowly dies off as he walks through till it's almost dead silence.
Yeah.
And it can be very chilling.
It is. I agree. What's interesting for me personally, when I watched it, if I'm not paying close enough attention and I hear the sounds of the whooping that people are doing, it sounds like wailing. And so I've had it happen to me. Maybe I just figured it out over time or something. But it's still that sound still sounds to me like someone's wailing, someone crying like, oh no, look what's happened, which is preposterous. It's taking it to another level.
Right.
So I've decided that isn't what's happening.
Well, and we've heard that whooping before
That's true.
in the shots of them dancing around.
And you still hear the music, and you still see the dancing, like you're talking about. Yeah, the shoe plottler is still going on, and the shot you're talking about. Well, that's what this whole minute is.
Yeah.
As it goes on, it's very effectively done that everyone continues to celebrate until he's just gotten past them, because of course we have to see them.
Right.
So it's handled perfectly.
Yeah, it is, and they're more clustered as he moves forward. It's sort of sparse, like it's the guy
He was on the outskirts.
vaping.
That's
in
right.
the previous minute.
Very, very sparse.
Yeah, and as he moves forward, it gets more and more clustered, and they start to kind of come around him, behind him, in support.
That's right.
So then there's an edit, because we're kind of tracking laterally at a sort of a 3/4 view of him. And there's an edit, and it's directly in front of him, pulling him, and then you see the crowd amassing behind them.
Yeah.
Leading up to they walk through the little archway.
Yeah.
Going up to the I assume it's either the Burgermeister's house or the official whatever town city hall or whatever it is.
I've always assumed it's more like that. Yeah. So there's so much. So basically, that's it. You've just described the entire minute of this film.
Basically.
So we're gonna probably bounce around a little bit in as we talk about it. But this is, I think, the only minute where there's absolutely no dialogue. If there is, it might be some somebody in the background that says
indistinct,
Maria,
yeah,
I think.
So it was "Oh Look Maria."
Yeah.
Actually, I think that was in the previous.
Might have been in the previous minute.
One of the children is "Oh Look Maria."
So there's no, at least according to the subtitles, there's no audible dialogue in the scene. So that in itself is notable because it shows how much emphasis Whale is putting on this. We talked about it just a few weeks ago, I guess, about the scene by the pond or by the lake where Maria's drowned, and the editing is a little bit choppy, and what reasons that might be. But it even came up because his editing can be used for those purposes sometimes.
Sort of a jarring or...
Yeah, and what he's chosen to do here is to let this play out really, really long.
It's almost a minute in and of itself of Michael Mark walking with Marilyn Harris through the...
Yep, and it's Michael Mark. And this is something I said, and people may or may not even remember anymore because it was 8 weeks ago or something when we first saw him.
Yeah.
Because I noted that I thought he was an interesting choice for that minute that we were talking about, where he says, "You play with the kitty."
Yeah.
He's just kind of a
goofy,
odd guy. He's a goofy guy.
Looks like Clint Howard, sort of.
Yeah, kind of like Clint Howard.
Yeah.
He's not in this movie to say "play with the kitty."
No, he's in
this movie for this.
Carry his dead daughter through the town square.
This is the guy you want.
Yeah.
He's haunted.
Yeah. He looks just absolutely tormented. And
yeah. No, this is awful.
Yeah.
This is
put yourself in his place. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's unimaginable.
Yeah.
And okay, so as you say, the crowd not only stops partying, but they start following him. There's a huge sort of dynamic that goes along with that, which is presumably, big picture, he's going to see the burgomaster with his dead daughter for some reason, and the town is coming to support him.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
But sort of why? There's a guy walking on the street with a dead kid.
Girl. Yeah.
Somebody might want to say something or ask him a question.
What happened? Yeah.
What are you doing?
What?
In real life, somebody might say something.
Well, and there are gendarmes there because they join in at the very end as they approach the city hall. So you'd think, one of them might "Excuse me, sir, what?
Yeah. Who is this? Who are you? What are you up to?
What do we got here?
Yeah.
That's a legitimate thing, but I think dramatically, this plays exactly the way it has to. I mean, it's a very guttural image.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a gut punch, seeing that it cuts right to. He doesn't enter the frame; he's there. It cuts right to him.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Walking
isn't it?
forward with his daughter.
Yeah.
Bam! It hits you right.
Well, and it is part of what I was saying again a couple of weeks ago about how we're sort of ramping up to this climax.
Yeah.
And how it worked better than what you had talked about before. I can't even imagine exactly how this would play out then, because we had talked about where...
Before the footage was put back in?
No,
Before...
that's interesting too, but no, I just mean what order all these events take place in.
Oh, right.
So if he doesn't meet Maria until... if I've got this right, originally he doesn't meet Maria until after he's terrorized Elizabeth?
I think that's how it was, yeah.
So then this whole thing plays out in a completely different way.
It does.
And it's much more effective this way.
Yeah.
Because you cut immediately from, it seems like Elizabeth's okay, but oh my God, this horrible thing has happened.
Here's someone who's definitely not okay.
Boom, right. It's ramping up. It's getting worse. It's not, it's beyond, I mean, if you didn't do it that way, I guess it would cut from he's reaching out, well, I guess, now I'm making it into something it isn't. He has the incident with her at the pond or whatever, and then it cuts to this, I guess, in the script?
No, all right. How it was...
Okay. I've got it wrong.
No, a little bit. It was the scene with Elizabeth coming in, telling Henry, "I want to talk to you." They go in, have that.
Okay.
Baldwin's been murdered. Then it goes to the scene by the lake.
Okay.
To them running through the house, to the monster coming into Elizabeth, and then this.
Okay.
So
not that much different.
Not that much different, but it was enough that I think, the point you're making is still a very, very valid point, that it plays out much more dramatically right this way.
Yeah.
It's much more impactful.
Right.
We've had time to process what's happened, and then to get slapped in the face with it again. Right, that hard edit to her limp body.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
And she's great.
This is something that nobody laughed at in the theater, by the way.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will always be this.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
Well, God help us.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Like we've talked about, we do a horror podcast, but it's not like, I don't know what a movie is like that people go and see that they think is called horror now. It could be any number of things.
Yeah, I don't really follow that much anymore.
Right. We're not doing a horror podcast talking talking about horror films in
Right.
2019.
No.
Is it still 2019? It's fall.
I forgot what it is.
Yeah, Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
something like that.
I don't know. A murdered child is a murdered child, and
Yeah.
hopefully that never loses its impact.
Yeah.
Because if it does, I don't know that I want to be part of that society
That's
anymore.
true. Okay, I think that's probably
I think
right.
that's a fair thing to say because it should a dead girl should still be a
Yeah.
shocking thing.
I guess the only way that it doesn't really work is that the monster doesn't, in the last minute, doesn't act like he thought that was such a big deal.
He's pretty upset when he
was
walks
pretty
away
upset
from
when he
the
walks
lake.
away, and then he's kind of forgotten about it, and he needs to talk to Elizabeth
He's only
about
a
something.
few days old, remember?
That's true. Well, now he's more than a few days old.
is.
He's a month old. I don't know. how
I
old
give
he
it a
is.
couple weeks.
Couple weeks old.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's a murderer.
Yeah, well, twice now, 3 times. Three times over.
He killed Fritz,
He killed
presumably
Waldman.
in
In
some fashion of cold blood.
Yeah, I mean, I can't
Self-defense.
say it wasn't warranted.
You know what?
It's an
I'm going to
animal
go ahead and say the first two are
self-defense.
self-defense.
Sure.
Waldman is there to cut him up,
kill
but
him,
he just
basically,
never
yeah.
gets around to it.
Yeah.
Let me listen one more time. Dummy. The Germans. What are you going to do?
But here's where, too, we see the kind of the mix of the period and contemporary costumes.
Absolutely, yes. You see a guy lean out the window who's not
in
his truck.
Got a suit on.
Presumably doesn't have lederhosen on.
There's a woman, too, a couple women in the crowd that surges forward in what looked like a contemporary 30s hat and coat.
Okay, all right. I didn't see that, but yeah. It's harder to pick that out sometimes because
there's just so many people.
So many people, yeah.
So it kind of gives that timelessness to it, I think, that some people struggle with. I happen to like that there's that sort of lax continuity to it.
I not only like it, or I also like it, but I also I think it's a little bit lost on me because it's a period film that was made almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So they don't look like 2019 anyways.
No,
they don't look like 1970 whatever when I first saw it either.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it did not look contemporary, I guess, in 1973 when I first saw it. So
it's like someone telling me how many years after the Civil War The General was made by Buster Keaton.
Yeah.
Like I can't even do the math. My brain doesn't process it. He might have made it during the Civil War.
It very much looks like he made it during. That's one of those few period films set in a specific period that looks like it was shot in that period.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's where my head goes with a film like this sometimes. It's like, yeah. Well, also, this street scene we're talking about is not meant to be... These people are dressed in their traditional garments. Even whatever time this takes place in, they're dressing in their traditional garments on purpose. They don't wear that every day.
No, this is for a celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Good enough. Well,
this is going to get more complicated in the next one.
Oh, it does. It should be on.
It's all over the place.
That's where I find it almost amusing that people... They referenced an article by Don Glued of trying to fit this into a specific time period and a timeline that makes logical sense when they don't.
Yeah.
You watch, like we did watch Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein back to back, and then follow it with Son of Frankenstein. It's 3 very, very distinct films.
In 3 different
styles.
Settings,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
The Bride is absolutely... It's the same setting as this film, but it doesn't look... Almost nothing looks the same.
Right. Yeah. It's very much heightened and
Son doesn't even
stylized.
try, and it's all the better for it. It's a completely different...
Yeah, well, and
animal.
it's a whole different era and a whole different... We talked about it. It's only 4 years later, but it seems like 20 that it was elapsed between Son and Bride.
And why is that? I'd say I'm gonna ask my question and not give you a chance to answer. The answer is because this film is so important. This film was so groundbreaking and important and created its own sort of genre that's why Bride happened. Bride didn't happen because they didn't have anything else to do.
Right.
They happened because this movie's fantastic. So of course it ramps it up. And then Son, there's a little bit longer explanation, but it's the same general idea.
Yeah.
They're redoing it.
Yeah, it was
The genre was dead that fast that they had to redo it.
Right.
But
it's almost like the legend of Frankenstein.
yeah, we're very lucky that. Well, we'll talk about that.
No, go ahead, say it. Finish your thought.
Yeah, we're very lucky that they were able to do that so fast. That they were able to make Son of Frankenstein and still have a relatively useful Boris Karloff to play the role.
Yeah,
because
he was my age when he made that. So.
And he, like I said, the genre had died and was making a comeback.
Yeah.
That's
it was because
8 years.
Yeah, 8 years because of this film being reissued in a tiny little
Exactly.
theater in Hollywood.
Yep, exactly.
This and Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That one.
That other movie.
Other one.
I think we've talked about it a couple times.
Yeah, not the Spanish one. I think it was the Spanish one.
Yeah, I think it was. Right.
Heartbreaking. This minute is heartbreaking.
It is. Kind of sucks the fun out of. Now this hasn't. No, I'm just kidding. This hasn't been a. Bride of Frankenstein is a fun film.
That's right.
This is very stark.
Yeah.
There are little moments of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Frederick Kerr certainly. Dwight Fry.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're done.
Yep.
From this point on, it's very.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I think that's what singles this movie out, actually. Like when I do watch them, and I've mentioned this a million times, nowadays I can just put it in a playlist.
Sure.
I have my software and I click play and it'll play all the movies for me. This one sort of stands out. It doesn't feel like any of the others, because from Bride on, it is fun. It's a lot more fun. And so one of the things I want to do, and in fact I did yesterday, which would be a year ago on this thing, but was I'll respond to somebody on Twitter. There seems to be a lot of people on Twitter that'll say, what's your favorite this or that, and I'll respond from the Frankenstein Minute account. So there was one that was a movie that's not considered very good, but that you think is great, and I responded back with Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Yep. I've just decided that I get to say that, whatever your opinion is. I didn't ask you. Yeah. Didn't consult you. So that's okay. But to me, that's a great movie. It's a great movie, and I love it. But it's because it's fun. To me, that I have a lot of fun watching that movie, and the flaws that are in it only help. I
think I was going to say it's fun because it fails.
It's in some ways that is absolutely true, but it isn't the only reason. The movie is also a lot of fun.
It is. It's not like an Ed Wood fail.
Yeah, yeah. But like the first half hour of that movie's great. Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. You know what I mean?
Parts are great.
It's mostly a Wolfman movie.
I think the Wolfman parts in it are better than the Wolfman.
Right. So it's a great movie. It's a lot of fun. And that's what I think I would say about most of what we have coming up. Yeah. Again, there's going to be some dips.
There's Ghost.
But Ghost has a lot of fun stuff in it. It's even trying to do some pretty fun stuff.
Again, the first 20 minutes or so of Ghost is pretty good.
And a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And this movie, this minute,
it's
not a lot of fun.
Not a lot of fun.
So that's why it kind of does stand out.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, then.
Settled.
Court is adjourned.